You've heard so much about applied research. Jim is the CEO of Rounds Consulting and a noted Arizona economist. Jim, I know you have a slide deck, so you are going to be even jazzier, and then I'll come back with some questions. Turning it over to you.
Let me share the screen, and thanks for the opportunity. Over the last couple of years, this is something where I've become very fond of looking at the New Economy Initiative, the PEI connections, really based on doing math, doing research into what makes good public policy, doing research into what drives economic growth. And sometimes the more gray hair you get or the thinner it gets, the more knowledge you have from just being around, and you really get a good feel after a couple or 3 decades on what really drives the state. And I'm from here. I went to ASU for undergrad and grad, and I'm hoping that my family will continue to be around here for a while, including my son. So I have a vested interest because of that history, but I have an interest just because of the economic facts that you'll see. And you don't really need a long presentation. You don't need 100 slides to show why we need the New Economy Initiative, but you just need a couple of key ones. So first, we talk about the fact that we grow rapidly. We're top 5 in most economic categories of growth. Through this entire COVID downturn, we've been number 3 in the nation in terms of maintaining jobs. And I like the fact that we keep growing, but we have to grow well. And over a longer period of time, when I say grow well, it means add incomes. We need to start adding jobs with much higher incomes at a rate that we haven't really considered in the past. And it's a catch-22 because when you create some of these high wage jobs, you create spin-off jobs that create lower income jobs. So it's a heavy lift going forward, but we did a little bit of context on this. But first, here's what woke me up when I had to put this together as a slide a few years back. It was tracking the greater Phoenix area's per capita personal income. And we used to be above the US. That's when the red line was above the green line. And then we started to slip. There was a little bit of a bump in 04 to 06, and that was because of the artificial spike in economic activity because of what happened before the Great Recession. But in general, it's been falling. And even if you make proper adjustments for how states are different or metro areas are different, unfortunately, we're lagging most of our economic development competitors in this quality measure. And this isn't a criticism of what's been done in the past. The good policy from the last decade, especially after the Great Recession, is what made us more resilient. It helped us have a better budget situation like right now, but it also gives us an opportunity to start putting money in places where we can get even more. And when you think about how a successful business operates, you look at return on investment. If I make an investment in capital in my company or training or anything else, I don't just write a check and say I lost that amount of money. I say I did this because I'm going to make at least that and a penny back. Sometimes you can make much more than that. But we have to take a look at this trend that you're seeing because it's comparing ourselves to ourselves. We're holding all else constant. And this is something that'll be researched further over the spring and the summer. But this is what you hear when you hear about the need for the New Economy Initiative. We did some preliminary numbers. We'll do more refined ones later on what does it take just to catch PCPI, per capita personal income, up to just the US average. And we certainly don't want to be a state that just pushes the average. We want to be a state that exceeds it. And on the most simple analysis that we can think of, which means the numbers are lower than probably what is going to be in reality as the need, we have to add about 120,000 high-tech jobs over the next decade with starting wages of $100,000 a year just to catch up with the US average. That's a heavy lift for us. If you factor in additional growth that is going to naturally be coming in, things like that, that 120 might go to 150 or 160. We have to start this now. And this isn't just the only piece that has to be put into place. We need a true plan going forward. I've been using this slide. I had last count was 225, I think, presentations, because I love the simplicity of that stereo equalizer. Lots of things drive economic growth, and say the dial on the left on the screen, that might be tax policy. So tax rates up or down. The next one might be infrastructure investment, intellectual infrastructure, then you have physical infrastructure, all the different things that make the economy tick. And you don't just turn up the volume, or you don't just slide one dial up or down to make it sound good. You find the right balance. You set it up in a consistent way that sounds good to you. That's how the economy works. And for some context, if we hear about a program where it's going to cost $100 million to fund, then we need to show tax revenue equal to greater than $100 million. And that means a positive return on investment. This applies to the universities, the New Economy Initiative, and basically every economic development project that's out there. For a little bit of context, this was the analysis that we started last year before COVID hit, when we were talking about the New Economy Initiative. And the analysis that we did for ASU on their proposal had a break even roughly in the middle of year 1 and year 20. When you do an economic development project, when you give incentives, you usually think about 5 years out. Cities might think 10 years out if infrastructure is involved. If it's a bigger item like that intellectual infrastructure, you can go out 20. And in this case, we got a break-even point in the same time that most economic development projects find that break-even point. And after that, the state's making even more money, which means we can lessen the burden on taxpayers while we still make additional investments. So all of the analyses that we did for all the universities last year, and it's looking the same now, is a high probability of an ROI that's going to be one of the bigger items that are going to be debated this year and probably in future years as well. So the math works on the New Economy Initiative. We really need to figure out a way of jumping to the next level. We have to not just catch up with the US average on the quality of the job growth. We have to catch up with some of our competitors. Why is it that Denver is at a certain rate? Why is it that Salt Lake is doing well in certain categories? We'll have to do a little bit more research on these things, but my main point is we have to do a lot. This is a great time. The budget is set, the business cycle is set. This is a great time for us to be investing much more in the New Economy Initiative than what's been proposed thus far. And again, every single analysis that we've done on this, it's consistently shown a positive ROI. And that concludes my presentation.
Really, such a great case for why it's important to the economy to do this. I would love to hear a little bit more about what happens if we don't make the investment.
If we don't make the investment, then we'll continue to grow in terms of volume, not at the same level of quality. We won't have the funds to further make our tax policy, our tax laws more competitive. We won't have the funds to deal with poverty issues that are going to impact higher education longer term. There's a number of things that we have to work on. So that list really isn't an exhaustive list. That's just 10 things that came to mind. There's dozens and dozens. So we have to be aggressive. We were aggressive after the Great Recession. We had a complete overhaul of how we do things in the economy, the economic development programs, everything else. We need to do that again. This is a time to do it. There is no better year than this year to get this ball rolling, and at a significant level.
And what significant look like to you? What do we need to do?
Well, we first have to make sure that the requests are funded, even if we have to have a little bit of a 2-year phase-in or whatever we do. But these are programs that are going to bring in more dollars over the longer term than what they're going to be costing in the shorter term. When you have a budget surplus, you can make those investments. And this legitimately could be the best expansion the state's ever had if we implement some good public policy this year, next year, and the following. And it has to include some New Economy Initiative. Again, the math doesn't lie. The math doesn't play politics. This is a good proposal.
All right, so you're seeing the demographics change swiftly within the state and a lot of in-migration into the state. So how does this help? You know, we talk like we're growing, it's all good, but you're saying too, like you need to invest with that growth. And what case, you know, if we're just growing all by ourselves, why do I need to spend money to help us grow more?
And really, that's the foundation for growing well. You have to be growing already. You have to have these opportunities. You have all of these great decisions that were made over the last decade after the Great Recession to set us up to where we are now. So you need that growth. We're not saying that we need to do it differently. We're basically saying, let's take it to another tier. Let's take it to the next level. And maybe we can be the number one state in the country when you aggregate all of these statistics that economists and policy advisors look at.
Great place to live, great place to do business, and a great place to start a business. But you need to invest. So we've got the workforce to make that happen. There's a lot of research, and you're an economist, like you said. The numbers aren't political. They're just math. You've got numbers like if we are making these kinds of investments, they're sort of necessary investments, that we will be 10, 12, 15% better than we would be otherwise. So there's these big jumps in that percentage. Do you see an acceleration as well at that point?
Yeah, we have an opportunity to accelerate upwards or fall flat and maybe even decline. And so I don't picture things just continuing at the normal pace because we have a lot of economic development competitors that are being more aggressive. So it's like one of those movie scenes where they say, step forward if you want to do something. And the one person that forgets a step forward is behind everybody else, or the opposite happens. Everybody steps back and it makes it look like somebody's stepping forward.
Not just to prevent defense.
Yeah, we have to be thinking about how can we legitimately take a step forward and not just hopefully benefit from some of our competitors stumbling. And right now, and I used to criticize the legislature and leadership all the time in speeches for years and years. I've never been more proud of what our leaders have been doing in terms of building the economy. We truly have the most exceptional economic focused leaders in the country. And I've read a lot of the reports in other states on how they do things. And there's a big drop off. We do this well, we analyze it well, let's implement it well.